Today I want to build a castle, but there is one thing that has always annoyed me when I see people making castles in Minecraft, and that is that they always make them out of the same boring grey and cold stone blocks. So today I want to make a castle that is completely opposite. I want to make it out of more lighter blocks, and I decided that the best block to use would be birch, but only the stripped logs and the planks. But the reason why I went for these blocks specifically is that they're light but not too white. So let's start building. And the first thing I did was to start making a tower. Then I made a wall with the archway in the middle and another tower on the left. Then I expanded the towers and added a crenellation on top. And I was actually really struggling with the top of the tower because I wasn't sure how I wanted it to look, but I think it turned out fine at the end. Then I started lining up the backside of the castle. And I know that calling this a castle might be a little bit of an exaggeration. It's more like a small fortress, but that's what I was going for. And I wanted it to be quite small and humble so that it could work as a starter base if we were playing survival. And that's also part of the reason why I went with birch as the material, because it's quite easy to gather. Then I made a wall on the bottom of a tower, and I did it first on the left side and then on the right. And I also added a wall with an archway in the middle, like the one in the front. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to have a way out on both sides or not, because on one hand I really like archways, so I always want to build more arches. But on the other hand I want this castle to be a bit realistic. And if this was a real castle that would be used for defense, it would be better with only one way in. And I actually had to think quite a bit on this one. And after a while I decided on keeping the door, but I wanted it to be closed. But before I did that, I finished up the two towers and the wall. And then I started working on the gate, and I first tried some normal spruce wood, but that didn't fit the medieval style that we're going for. So I tried some fences instead, and that worked really well. And I made a gate that's completely closed in the back, but in the front I made it halfway closed so you can walk through if you would like that. Then I carved out the floor in the middle. And I know what I said about that I didn't want this castle to be too grey, but I feel like stone would be the only thing that would kind of fit as a floor here. Because I could make it out of wood, but I don't think that would fit really well because the castle is already made out of wood. And I think if I did the floor out of wood too, then it would just look weird. It would be way too much wood. So I will do an exception here and use grey blocks. Then I started carving out a small plot around the castle. And the reason why I did this was I wanted to have some nature around the castle. So I made this plot to plant some trees and put some bushes. And you're probably wondering why I didn't just make this in a normal flat world where the entire world is made out of grass. And the reason why I did this is that I kind of like the sandstone. It makes the build pop out way more and make it way more visible. And especially when I make these videos, I want my builds to be really visible. So that's why I did it like this. Then I placed some bushes around the castle and I planted some trees. And I know that some people are probably gonna get mad because I used birch. Because for some strange reason, a lot of people hate birch. Which I think is quite strange considering jungle wood exists. Like, I don't understand how people can say with a straight face that jungle is better than birch. But this is not a ranting video, so let's get back to the building. And after I was done with the outside, I started working on the courtyard inside. And the first thing I did was to add a ladder so you can get on top of the wall. Then I started working on a small stand. Is that what you call it? A stand? I don't know, but anyway, I made that and I made a door so you can get inside of the castle. Then I made a place where animals can drink from. And on the other side I placed a lot of hay. And I actually placed so much that I had to remove some of it because I needed space for other things. And some of those things was barrels in the corner, another stand and a horse. And I tried placing other things too, but it became a little too crowded. And also if this was a real castle with a market inside, you would need space to walk, so I think it's good. Then it was time to do the interior. And it was really hard trying to make a time-lapse of it. And this is especially hard when the inside is so small. But I tried my best to show how I built this. So I started building. And it wasn't just time-lapse that was hard to make, but also just the interior in general. Because all the towers are circles, which makes it really hard to build anything because it's not a lot of space. But I just had to make the most of it. And as you can see, the first room that I made was a bedroom. And I made a nice red bed and I placed some bookshelves on the wall. And before I went on to the next room, I placed the carpet and an armor stand. Then the next room that I made was just gonna be like a hangout room. And I started out by placing two chairs. Then I made a table out of a fence and a carpet. And at this point I was kinda tired. I built all this in one go, and it was really late. And I kinda wished that I'd stopped and gone to bed, and then I could have just finished it the next morning, but I didn't. And at this point my creativity was going down. And because of that, I think there was a lot of missed opportunities in this room. And I just ended up filling the room with a lot of junk, like chests and paintings. And also a note block. Then I went over to the next room that was going to be a bathroom. And the first thing I built was a nice bathtub out of diorite. Then I stacked a bunch of barrels on top of each other, and I used a raw golden ingot as a soap. It was still too empty, so I added some greenery and a carpet, which may be a little bit unrealistic because the carpet is probably gonna get wet when it's so close to the bathtub. And I think this room was the room that turned out the best in this castle. Then it was time to work on the lower part of the castle. And I first built a hallway. But then I realized that the other side didn't have a door, so I made a really quick door there. Then it was time to make a kitchen. and it was right under the bathroom, which was a little dumb because it started dripping water from the bathtub. But I didn't care to try to fix that because it's not that big of a deal. And I also think this room could have turned out way better if I had more energy. And my creativity right now was non-existent. But I think this room turned out like okay. It's not that good, but it's not like insanely bad. And I really like that little storage room that I built on the side. Then on the other side of the hallway I started working on this room, and this is probably the most boring room yet. It's just a storage room with a lot of barrels and chests and some paintings. Then I went to the other side of the castle and started building an office. And an office obviously needs a desk. So that's what I did first. And I really regret that I made it out of the same wood as the floor, because it blends too much in with the floor. And this room too was also really simple, not much detail. But I did add a dark oak door, which that's pretty cool, right? Anyway, the office turned out fine. And the next room is the library. And I just filled the room with bookshelves, because it's a library, what do you expect? It has to be filled with books. But I did add some chairs and a nice carpet. Then it was time for the final room in this castle. And this room was just gonna be like a dressing room. And I know it looks really ugly when I've just filled it with chests and barrels and armor stands. But you have to remember that my brain was turned off, so this room ended up like crap. And that was the last thing I did. And even though I complained a lot about the interior, I actually really like this build. I think it turned out good. But before I leave, I just want to have a look at it. And I just have to say, I think this courtyard turned out so cool. And this build turned out almost just as I had imagined it. And it might not be the biggest castle, but that wasn't the plan neither, so I'm happy. And just look at this with shaders, it looks even cooler. And I also just want to say that if you watched through this entire video, then thank you so much. And if you think this video was good, then don't forget to like and subscribe and comment what you want me to build next. And I'll see you next time. Bye!